If Terence Crawford backs out of the fight between Sebastian Fundora and Errol Spence, it's a done deal. Professional fighter Danny Garcia thinks the fight between Fundora and Spence will be great, but he thinks Fundora will win. Danny said that his lack of exercise has hurt fighters, especially those who are getting lighter.
Another big fight that was just announced for early 2025 is Fundora and Spence. Want to know what you think about that fight and how you see that one playing out.
Definitely interesting matchup. It's a great matchup. Two southpaws, two people who like to be there and fight. It's tough. I would have picked Spence, but he just hasn't been active. So that's just a tough fight. That's the only thing, though, you question is the inactivity, because that kills fighters, especially going up in weight. You never fought at that weight before.
Garcia went on to say more about how hard it will be for Errol Spence in his fight with Fundora. You've never fought that heavy before. It has a different effect. Since the guys are bigger, I would have chosen Spence. Fundora is hard, so I don't know. There's also that great fight, but if Spence wins that one, you can see him facing Bud Crawford again. Paulie Malignaggi and Chris Algieri, two former boxers, criticized Errol Spence for fighting for a title right after losing a big fight to Crawford. Paulie was shocked at how quickly fighting rules can change.
So many question marks for Spence. I mean, he just got destroyed.
Yep.
People are talking.
Yeah. You're absolutely right.
The whole rumor is he the same after the car accident? He's the same after the eye surgery. And then he gets whooped in the Crawford fight. Are you going to have those same question marks now and bring them into a pay-per-view headliner for the double world champion? Not to mention the obvious, which is you're not allowed to fight for a championship coming off a loss, let alone a one-sided knockout loss.
Right. You're acting like the rules get upheld. This is mine. But here's
I'm trying to play
you're trying
to do it right here.
Furthermore, Danny Garcia firmly stated that if Errol Spence wins to fight with Fundora and becomes unified, then he can even go up against Canelo or have a good rematch with Crawford.
If he does get that victory, do you see him getting the rematch with Bud, and how do you see a possible rematch playing out?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he gets that fight, he might get a Canelo fight. He might get the Crawford fight. You win that fight, you become unified. There's nothing but big things. I could really see him actually fighting Canelo if he wins that fight.
Danny further commented that if Fundora wins the fight with Errol Spence, then he can take on Terence Crawford, although Garcia doubts that Fundora can take on Canelo Alvarez at the present time. On the other hand, Mike Coppinger reported that Sebastian Fundora WBO mandatory challenger Terence Crawford has agreed to step aside and allow Fundora to face former joint welterweight champion Errol Spence Jr. in a voluntary defense, as per Mike Coppinger. Fundora and Spence already struck a deal and are likely to meet in Texas in early 2025. 3 of Spence's last 5 fights have taken place in Arlington, while the towering Inferno Sebastian Fundora last fought there in 2020. While former professional boxer Sean Porter already stated that Errol will be going back in action against Fundora in 2025.
I'm hearing there's a rematch in place. I'm also hearing that there's a possibility of the big fish getting in the ring with Fundora. So Samson said when Errol got in the ring, he shook his hand, told him, "Yeah, you're gonna get you got next." Yeah. And then he said after that, I remembered that hey, we do have this rematch clause in effect.
Sean Porter reacted on Sebastian Fundora's last fight with Tin Chu. Sean claimed that the fight was a complete bloodbath while Porter watched Fundora and Zuo fight. He thought that this fight would not move past the 4th round. Sean further said that Chu was hurt really badly in the 2nd and 3rd rounds with a cut on his forehead, and it seemed like he did not have much experience with facing taller opponents like Fundora. On the other side, former fighter Tim Bradley said that the Errol Spence fight makes much more sense for Fundora than Terence Crawford. Bradley shockingly claimed that Terence Crawford would knock out Sebastian Fundora.
EBC is going to push for that fight, and that's probably going to be his next matchup. And I think, on paper, it's the better matchup for him. I don't think Fundora beats Crawford. I don't. I think he gets knocked out by Terence Crawford. But I think the Errol Spence fight makes sense.
Tim said that Errol Spence is coming from a big beatdown by Terence Crawford in 2023. He also stated that Errol has had eye surgeries, and both Fundora and Errol are southpaws. Tim said that Sebastian has the reach and the style to maybe even hurt and stop Spence after his fight with Tim Chu. Fundora called out both Errol Spence and Terence Crawford and stated his desire to beat both top fighters.
Everybody has goals, in boxing. He's a legend right now in this sport, and one of the top fighters. So, I like to get in the ring with him too. It'll be a great fight. He's before that Terence Crawford fight, he was considered one of the best fighters in the world. So let's do it. Whatever they give me. Errol Spence is a great opportunity. I think it's a match made in heaven but Terrence Crawford is the best fighter in the world. I would like to fight him.
It's unknown who Crawford will fight while he's waiting for the smoke to clear from the Fundora vs. Spence fight. Given the 37-year-old Crawford's age and recent lackluster performance against Israel Madrimov on August 3rd, he needs to return to the ring soon against one of the contenders so that he doesn't allow more ring rust to accumulate. Moreover, it is also believed that Errol Spence will completely reinvent himself at 154 before the Fundora vs. Spence topic. This hot former champion Andre Ward hinted on Errol wanting to fight Sebastian since he flew in the ring after Sebastian won against Tinchu.
You think of Terrence fighting the winner of Saturday's fight, Tszyu and Fundora. He's made himself the mandatory for the winner.
Hey, I think it could be good, but then all of a sudden we see a tweet from Errol Spence.
Right.
So Errol Spence, from what I know, is not going to tweet nothing like that unless there's some backdoor conversations going on saying you in position.
Meanwhile, Chris Algieri was asked what he thinks of the Spence vs. Fundora matchup, to which he replied that Spence was always going to be the guy to match up against Sebastian despite his loss to Crawford. Algieri said that Fundora is not the money guy, so he is being forced to vacate his title if he wants to meet Spence. Chris further adds on Fundora topping Spence, "We don't really know, he's honestly the weaker champion in the class, and now you bring a guy like Spence, and okay, so Fundora gets the win, boom. Okay. Wow, you just beat a big guy. You got Spence's head on your squad." On the other hand, Errol Spence Jr. seemed wildly excited to fight Fundora, which will finally lead him to a rematch with Crawford.
You told Bud you don't wait in lines. You know, you mentioned that you might want to fight Fundora. Are you staying to that? You still want to come back and fight Fundora?
Oh yeah, for sure. Come back and fight Fundora, then I guess Crawford mandatory, so we'll do a part two.
In another interview, Sebastian Fundora promoter Samson talked about the options that Fundora has among Terrence Crawford and Errol Spence. He ironically replied in favor of Spence because that will be the best payday for Fundora.
Moment now I need to maximize the most money for the fighters. And I believe he deserves it.
Is that Errol Spence Jr.?
That's correct.
Over Crawford? Like, does Spence more money? Or?
No, Crawford will not sell out 90,000 people in Dallas. I can tell you that.
While talking about Crawford Samson, he stated that he is a better fighter than Errol Spence. He further added that the main goal is to produce the maximum profit for the fighters, and Errol Spence is the only way out. Samson painfully stated that Errol Spence is a tough opponent. As he said, "I believe that this is one of the things that, well, Spence is a really good fighter anyway, especially in 154, so I believe that he would have a shot, but now you need to wait like you made others wait. That is the fighting world. There is not only one way, there are two ways." Meanwhile, Crawford stated that he felt disrespected by the Fundora team for saying that he couldn't sell in Dallas, Texas. Terrence slammed Sebastian's people by saying that when he came out of the 147 PB division, then he went straight for Fundora.
Oh man, we still, you know what I mean, we still interested in that. Yeah, of course. But one thing that kind of threw me off was they saying I wasn't, you know what I mean. What did his people say? They weren't worried about me because I couldn't say it.
Well, oh yeah.
I couldn't say it. When I first came out the 147-pound division, I went straight to Fundora.
On the other hand, Sebastian Fundora gave his thoughts on Terrence Crawford. He said that if he can beat Crawford off, then that would likely make him the next world winner.
Of course. He's the number one. He's the number one in the world right now. He's the best boxer right now. So, again, if I could beat him, where does that put me?
Is he really going to fight a 6'6" super welterweight, though? You really think he'll...
Hey, the money's right. Why not?
Meanwhile, Terrence Crawford dished out some major insults to Sebastian Fundora for getting knocked out by Israel Madrimov and sparring. While talking about the fight, Terrence noted, "That's a fight on the table. If Fundora is licking his chops over my performance versus Israel Madrimov, then I should be licking my chops because Madrimov knocked Fundora out in practice, so who should be licking their chops?" That's what I heard after Terrence Crawford's insulting words on him and his team. Sebastian took to his Instagram story and answered with a few lines from Ed Sheeran's song Tennessee. Fundora noticed we are surrounded by all of these lies and people that talk too much, insinuating that the claims made by Crawford are lies, and that Bud is now talking too much in addition to Crawford's insults. Former boxer Paulie Malagi also made fun of the fierce titan Sebastian Fundora by commenting that Fundora thinks he is Canelo by picking and choosing top fights.
What you thought about this 154-pound situation with Terrence Crawford, who doesn't seem to have any desire to fight again at 154 pounds?
I mean, I don't know what Fundora. Is that his quote? Focus only on landing Terrence Crawford. Is that his quote? I mean, I don't know that he's in a position to decide. You know, I don't know.
Yeah, he says he wants Crawford. Yes, but
okay, but it's not like
so do a lot of people.
I want to win the lottery, Jimmy.
No, but what I'm saying, I was
want
say,
a pony.
I was gonna say, what is he, Canelo? He just gets to pick who he wants to fight. I don't think it works that way for him.
Moreover, Paulie also praised Sebastian since he said that Fundora gets the credit for his win against Tim Chu, even though the win was controversial due to the fact that Tim received a severe cut by the gigantic 6'6" Titan. Malagi noted that Terrence Crawford and Fundora are both raising plenty of questions for the public going into this fight. On the other hand, before Tim Chu faced Sebastian Fundora and lost his titles, he stated that he would gladly fight Errol Spence at 154, and he isn't particularly picky about his opponents.
Spence?
Yes.
Yeah, I'll take them all, man.
Oh,
come on, bro. Like,
would you do
100%.
Over here, we'll move
100%. You know, like Crawford's the man, and man, I'd love to take on a challenge like that. Like everyone, bro. Honestly, I don't want to be this fighter that picks and chooses, man. I'll fight everyone, man. Throw back.
7 months after losing to Sebastian Fundora, Tim Chu has called the unified WBC and WBO junior middleweight title list as the man to beat at 154, who is Sebastian Fundora. Tim Chu mentioned that there are a lot of great names in the division. He added that the 154-pound class is red hot right now. Man, there are names flooding around everywhere. Belts are stacked from everywhere. So it's good to be in this class right now. Chu said that he was open to fighting any fighter at 154 but chose Fundora as the first option on his list. Chu also has plans to move up hand weight in the future. He noted that if everything presents itself and the way things work out, then yeah, of course, why not? It all depends on the current situation. Boxing changes. It's like a fighter loses and then it's the next guy in line. That's all. You can't really predict the future much. It's hard right now. 154 is very hot, so I'll stay here at the time. Fundora has the belts now, but no, I don't think he's the best. Furthermore, Sean Porter said that he would love to see the rematch between Fundora and Tim Chu, but he would like the fight even better if it's Fundora versus Errol Spence Jr. after he is all fixed up.
I like the rematch. I really don't know whether or not the rematch is necessary. However, I actually could see them taking a fight with Errol Spence Jr. Once he heals up and things like that. He's got some time, and even with that, you know, I'll respect if you don't want to reveal what the injury is, but I mean it's quite clear that the injury is a broken or a fractured nose, something much more serious that takes 6 months to heal, opposed to the 2 months, 1 month, 2 months that you would typically get.
Even Errol Spence himself has hinted at a return to the ring at 154 or 160 pounds when he shared on his social media account. It may even be possible that we would see a Terrence Crawford versus Errol Spence rematch before Crawford finally quits. Terrence Crawford shockingly admitted that he signed a rematch clause with Errol Spence, so he will be looking to fight Spence in the near future.
To ask about you, we're hearing about the rematch with Spence. What is the latest regarding that?
Well, the latest is, you know, we signed and contracted to do a rematch, and that's what it is right now.
Do you know when it's going to be, when we can hear?
I don't got no date right now, you know, but I know that's the next fight that Terrence Crawford.
Furthermore, Danny Garcia also wanted a piece of Errol Spence before he quits. Danny has stated that he wants to avenge losses to Errol Spence Jr. and Keith Thurman before his career is over. Danny confidently stated, "I would love to fight Errol Spence for a rematch. I would love to avenge at least one of my losses before this is all said and done. If I can get a rematch with one of those guys and come back and fight another fight, that would be crazy." In a previous talk, Sebastian Fundora promoter Samson Lucas was adamant about making Fundora fight Terrence Crawford and threw all reports of Errol Spence out of the window.
No, Fundora will go into a first beat next week, most likely, with Crawford. I may have the approval of PBC to represent PBC, Tom Brown, and myself in the first beat that will be for the WBO, and I plan to go and beat on that one because we want Crawford. We have the mandatory. We want to comply with the mandatory.
Samson showed his readiness on behalf of Fundora to fight anyone in the division at 154 pounds by saying, "We will comply with the mandatory if everything is real." Sebastian is the unified champion, and he wants to stay the unified champion. Samson noted that it is clear that Crawford is not the same as he was. Crawford looks small against Matarmov. He said he would fight Canelo next if the price was right. Well, this is not a TV game show. I don't think a fight with Canelo would be good. Very few would buy the pay-per-view. In addition, Eddie Hearn claimed that Terence Crawford is asking far too much money for fights in the 154-pound division. Hearn earlier stated that Tim Tszyu could beat Fundora, but he doesn't see him winning against Crawford.
Tim Tszyu will beat Fundora. Tim Tszyu can fight.
Yeah.
He can fight. I mean, it's not, I don't think he beats Terence Crawford, but he's a strong young boy who's, very exciting. There's money in Australia for those kind of fights. It's just that Terence Crawford, the numbers that he wants for those fights, I don't really know how you generate it on a pay-per-view that just doesn't rate.
So do you think that Errol Spence can beat Sebastian Fundora? Will he be overpowered and overmatched by the towering Inferno? We would love to hear your ideas. Let us know in the comments part below and subscribe for more content like this.